That's how insane everything's gotten. So we'll be talking about all of that. And we have two guests joining us today. First, we have Kellie-Jay. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kellie-Jay. I am a women's rights campaigner from the UK.
Right on. Is there anything people would have known you from, or anything you focus on specifically?
Yeah, I focus on the word woman specifically to keep it for women. I got a billboard taken down in the UK in 2018 that had the dictionary definition of the word woman.
Which
and
is?
It was removed for an adult human female. Who knew? And it got removed. It got removed for hate speech.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
Like, why do you need your middle school teacher to come out to you and tell you that they hate their body and
it's all over TikTok, right?
All of this
people
stuff.
actually do come out to really small children in this fashion, but there is an overwhelming surge to break the frontier and boundaries of kids, just totally erode all safeguarding, not allow them to use words that are literal and mean something. And the sexualization of kids, whether it's cuties, whether it's this cartoon, but it's like, it's as if you're doing something remarkable if you're trying to enforce this onto kids. It's so messed up.
It's almost like we've destroyed our culture to the point where there's no way for children to gauge when they're adults. So we just have to decide that they're adults from the very beginning and can understand this stuff. So kids are learning about gender identity before they know what sex is.
It's such a shame, though, don't you think, with Netflix, because they really stood up for Dave Chappelle. They are willing to sort of allow supposedly controversial opinions, and I really was, I totally back them for that. I think that's brilliant. And then they do this, and you're like, oh, come on, please.
I don't know if they actually back Dave Chappelle to a certain extent. The last special that Dave did was heavily focused on trans people. It's like it's really weird.
Yeah.
Dave did a special. He mentioned he had jokes about trans people. He got attacked heavily for it, and it seemed like it consumed him. And so he ends up,
right?
his next special ends up being this kind of like, it was very defensive.
Yeah. It was nearly a TED talk, to be fair.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah. Where he was like, and he was like, I guess people just don't understand the jokes, so I'm going to stop doing them. Well, it's like they got him.
What did you think of that? What did you think of the whole Chappelle thing?
Well, I have issues anyway, because I think he's incredible for walking away from all that money and keeping his dignity and credibility all those years ago. But I'm not really a great big fan of his humor. The way that he talked about Candace Owens, I just can't really get past that. But yeah, I think it's bizarre that comedians, Ricky Gervais is the same, they sort of tell a joke and then explain the joke. And like, when have you started doing that? Right. Just tell a joke. If it's funny, we'll laugh. And if it's not, we'll move on. But you saying, oh, this is a joke because actually I'm doing a bit of wordplay and I'm doing this and please don't cancel me. It's like, no, just have the bravery to just tell a joke.
Indeed, yes.
A story that is a great overlap is this story from Newsweek about J.K. Rowling and YouTuber Vaush sparring over International Women's Day, mainly because one of the critiques against Vaush, one of the most common ones, is about his comments on young children and sexualization of them.
Yes.
And so he is an interesting character in this, in that he kind of embodies a lot of these critiques we're talking about.
Yeah.
So this story is, you may have seen it, it's actually from 5 days ago. J.K. Rowling called Vaush likened him to an abusive ex-husband who used to tell me my life would be great if only I'd comply, but you're making the same mistake he did. Women like me can't be bullied out of resistance. There's a couple things I find interesting here that's worth talking about. One, I don't know if you saw this, but recently, what's her name? Emma Watson? Is that her name, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she said, I'm here for all the witches. And then everyone clapped. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but a lot of people are assuming she was making like a trans affirming statement or something.
She looked gutless when she said it, so I think she was.
All the witches? Is that what she said?
She said
like, all the witches.
Oh my gosh.
Like, what does that mean?
I'm here for all the ladies, I think.
But J.K. Rowling's an interesting subject in this, and interestingly, Vaush is as well, because we're talking about the weird grooming of children and stuff like that. Vaush has been heavily criticized for that. J.K. Rowling, is an interesting story. For those that aren't familiar, I mean, this is the gist of the story. She said, someone please send the Shadow Minister for Equality's a dictionary and a backbone. Happy International Women's Day. And then Vaush said, women be quieter and start apologizing challenge. To which She responded with that, you're like an abusive ex-husband. He said, listen, Joanne, you don't get to play the victim card when you're the advocate for taking away women's rights here. Trans women are raped and killed in men's facilities, and you want to keep them there because of your trauma. Quit making your feelings other people's oppression. Ugh. For this, my attitude is like, and I said this before, this is not to be cute or hyperbolic or facetious. I believe that Vaush is a men's rights activist.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Saying women shut up or, women be quiet and start apologizing. Like a language like that 10 years ago, they'd call them an MRA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even socialists were called MRAs. So this is like this story and the issues around J.K. Rowling and everything that's going on. Man, I really just want to reiterate the point. There are two different realities. We know it. It includes war. It includes law. It includes politics. It includes culture. And this is where the two realities just clash all the time.
I think all of this stuff, I think it's a transhumanist culture war. I think that's what we have going on.
I'm hopeful. I think real human connection is actually a really powerful thing. And whilst we may trend away from it and people may shy away from it somewhat, I don't think we can escape it. I think I can't live in a world in which we are heading towards not touching each other
But we're already there. Like
I know.
The,
and you mentioned
the
surrogates,
20-year-olds are having less sex than ever before.
It's true.
More like A for asexual is part of the LGBTQ alphabet soup, right? It's all in there. Asexual is a sexual identity. There's less sex, less people want to have kids. There's less touching. There's less dating.
Do you not think that we will get to a point though where this unpersonal chaos will just reach peak? And then we will just revert back to, maybe if there's a massive war,
right? Maybe if there's a reason for all of us to run screaming into the woods.
There was a case discussed on the BBC, and a little boy lived with his mum, and she had 2 towels after she had a shower for her hair and her body. And one day he said, I'd like 2 towels, and she said, you don't need 2 towels. So he said, but I'm a girl. And so she went to bed that night and thought deeply about him being a girl. Not that he just wanted 2 damn towels. And then he started on his road to transition at like 7, socially transition.
That is a mess up.
It's just so weird.
My son uses like 4 towels. I don't know what he uses in 4. I come into the bathroom. I'm like, you really needed all these towels?
Apparently.
Why did she say he didn't need 2 towels though? He has hair, right?
I have no idea. This is her very brave journey about discovering that her son was really a girl. And so I think she thought that was a good thing to say.
I think the question is, what about this child saying that they were a girl is like confirmation of a trans identity? I mean, obviously
for her.
Right. So like what makes you think from saying I want 2 towels to saying that you're a girl makes the leap to their biology is wrong and they need medication or some kind of surgical treatment, right? I mean, I'm assuming that she went to the doctor though, right?
For me, if we assume she hasn't got something like Munchausen's by proxy, there is a lot of social status for average people to gain by doing this brave and super wonderful mother. And it is women, unfortunately, it's women that go along with this narrative with their kids. It's not so much dads.
That's correct.
What does feminism even
That was
mean?
intentional. We were actually, before we went on tonight, Kelly and I were looking at the definition of gender and gender identity on Wexlaw, I think at Cornell. And they're the same. They basically have the same definition.
Which word? Gender and gender?
Gender and gender identity are all about like your perceived self and your innate internal self.
Yeah.
Which isn't anything. Like, it's just absurd. We've taken and we gaze in so deeply that we think we see something, and it's not.
I just try to avoid all of that social argument stuff by just saying sex.
Well, that works out.
So I'll say like male and female instead of men and women, and then I'm just like, there you go, fine, whatever.
It still doesn't work with Canadian hate speech laws.
Really?
But we're in this really bizarre sort of idea that our bodies are not connected to who we are. I mean, I am my body. If I was taller, I'm sure I'd be slightly different. If I was a lot shorter, I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but if I was if I was loads shorter, I'd be a completely different person. Of course, if I was a man walking around in the world with A, testosterone, and B, being a man and being treated like a man, there's a transaction between me and the society in which I live, and we both kind of find out what and who I am. It's not just up to me, and it's not just up to them. And it's bizarre that we're deciding that gender is separate from that your internal sense of self is a social construct, is the most stupid idea, and it doesn't make any sense. Have you heard of the mouse utopia experiment?
Talk about it all the time.
Yes.
It's just, well, when they give mice a lovely place to live and enough bedding and enough food and enough everything, and eventually the mice go a bit crazy and turn on each other and stop having sex. And
Oh, that's like America.
I just wonder if we lack purpose. You know, I just look at, you know, if my kids ever talk about millionaires, sort of Kardashian style millionaires, and I'm like, yeah, but
Are they
what do
billionaires? They're billionaires, right?
Well, billionaires, millionaires, billionaires, just a lot more than me. But I sort of look at them and I think, what's the purpose of their day? Like, what are they striving for? And do we as human beings need something to strive for? Because if you've got nothing to aim for, to go for, to move forward for, then don't you just stay still and then just become unhappy?
Yes.
I sometimes think you get to the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and then it inverts.
Yeah.
And then we're just heading for, just doomed. Well, also we have a lack of, so I'm what you call a gold star atheist. I've never believed in God. But I think the organized religion and the mutual purpose of people and collective purpose of heading towards an afterlife, of actually trying to do good for something that you can never touch, I think that also has left us wanting. And I think where we've looked is within our narcissistic little bodies.
Yeah, I
Isn't
think
it
that's right. We have turned in and we worship the self where we used to worship God. And now we do worship the self. And we have removed the soul. We've extricated the soul and replaced it with gender.
It's so beautiful.
I do think it's interesting that the culture war has made a lot of people like theist or whatever.
I've got a theology degree, so I have a vested interest in.
You're an atheist with a
promoting.
theology degree?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
that's,
love this.
That sounds right.
I want to
Does that
hear
make you
everything
a
more about this.
theologist? Yeah, tell me about it.
A theologist.
That's wonderful.
No, I think that makes sense if you're going to be an atheist to know what you're talking about.
Well, I thought I'd find some. So for a start, I thought university, because I'm an idiot, was going to be like Kids from Fame, which is probably way too old a reference for any of you.
I liked it. I liked the show.
So you just sit in an individual chair and you'd all sort of discuss these really meaty topics. It wasn't quite like that, but I just thought there may be universal truths. And if I study theology, I may find universal truths, and then I may examine my own belief system, but that didn't actually happen. However, I do think the universal truth of human beings absolutely needing something above and beyond themselves is something that now we're finding out to our peril.
Yeah.
Do you think above and beyond, like a partner?
I think anything that makes you put yourself a little bit last. Whether that be family, community. Whilst we've lost our organized religions, in the UK probably more than in the US, and it's no mistake that in poor countries they still are very religious. So whilst we've lost our religions, we've also lost our sort of touch your parents because they're just next door kind of culture. We don't have communities. We've all moved away from each other. Many people live tens of miles, if not hundreds or thousands of miles away from their parents. And I just think these real things that you can reach out and touch are things that we desperately need. In order to get your hands on kids, you need to break up the family. And the strongest connection, pardon me for saying, is mothers and children. And surrogacy is a massive thing that totally separates the idea that mothers carry children and have children and raise and nurture infants. And so all of it is, there's not much that we're doing that actually reinforces the family. And I know the family in America has got the weird connotations of family, traditional, like homophobic. If you mention family values, all of a sudden you're saying something anti-gay. But it's just really interesting. If I was a predator, if I was a nasty predator predatory paedophile. I would absolutely love the segregation of children from families and mothers from children and disempowering mothers. And there's no greater way to disempower mothers than actually rob women of all of their rights and power and vocabulary.
Of all of their rights as a mother. Yeah, to
Yeah.
even call yourself a mother.
Yeah.
It's shockingly horrifying to see how this is going on.
So, well, I was just going to say, look, because I'm far too hopeful to think this is the future for human beings. But also, even if you're right, there's only going to be a certain number of people that can afford to join the you don't think, the metaverse?
Everybody's got a cell phone. It's only a matter of time. It'll start with the rich people, but then give it 10 years and it's going to be a $20 metaverse pass.
And what about the people that are religious and are family connected in countries like India?
See,
Then in this happy future that we're all looking at, that those in maybe authoritarian religious countries, will they be less likely to hook up?
I don't know about that. It's a great way to control the population.
What do you think is going to be the next thing then when normal people get peaked into understanding that they're being massively lied to? So
I don't know if that'll happen.
Neural
I think
net.
it is
No.
happening.
See, so because of what I do and I defend women's rights, then I'm used to the media peddling what I call lies about really important.
What you call? What are?
What are lies?
Factually lies.
And I'm kind of used to that. I'm used to our politicians going along with telling absolute silly lies about biological sex and what words mean. But then we had the pandemic, in which that sort of really propelled more lies and narratives and really obvious, overt, kind of dishonest narratives. And now we've got the war in Ukraine, which, because of all these lies, I think people are finding it really difficult to believe anything that's being told by the mainstream media. And so where the hell next?
Well, on Thursday, I don't know if you saw this, the White House invited 30 TikTok stars to give them the
Amazing,
propaganda lines about the war in Ukraine.
Is that like when
They
Biden
peddled
got
the
Cardi
whole-
B? It's interesting you talk about the puberty thing, because when advocates in the UK to try and stop women's sports being invaded by men, they will talk about puberty. Well, actually, the advantages that men have over women is not just puberty. It's bone density, it's muscle fiber, it's all these, it's cardiovascular system, it's muscle memory, even of remembering how strong you were before. A little bit of testosterone suppressant, which never suppresses the testosterone to a point the same as a woman.
It's impossible to suppress prenatal testosterone when you're already born.
Would there be a correlation between states who don't have constitutional carry with other sort of infringements of the Constitution? So California, for example, I would say it was anti-constitutional to put men in women's prisons.
Which they, of course, do.
Yeah, but I think
so does
Biden's-
Washington.
Well,
but Biden's
that's-
put forward a defense of it, right?
Yes, Biden is pro putting men in women's prisons,
but
as is
hold on.
the unelected governor of New York State.
It's a potential 14th Amendment argument, but that's it. And it doesn't clearly define what the violation is. So that's a harder question, to be honest.
Right. So,
So-
I probably don't really understand your constitution. But I'm just wondering if there is a correlation between not having a constitutional carry and other things that may be like free speech, all those sorts of things.
So the first covers freedom of speech. Second is guns. Third is to be free from the government quartering soldiers in your home or providing your home as, providing your home to soldiers. The fourth is unreasonable search and seizure. But the 14th is equality under the law. Nope, there should be one bathroom for everybody. But this is happening in New York, where instead of doing a men's room and a women's room, they're doing 5 individual bathrooms with doors you just lock. And so now they're just all genderless single stalls.
Yeah, but are they those weird doors that you have over here that we don't have in the UK, which leave...
No.
your
These are
These are right the way
room.
down to the floor.
This would be like walking into a broom closet. Like you walk into an actual room and close
It would
the
be
door and lock
walking
it.
into your own WC with
Right,
nobody
but
else
it
in
still
it, with a
doesn't
sink,
stop
with
men
a sink. and everything.
urinating on the seat.
Yes,
That's
yeah, no,
right.
that-
That's an issue. That's an issue.
I take your point about dancing around certain topics and not saying certain phrases or certain words in order to stay on, but the fact that social media, that these corporate kind of faceless corporations are preventing people from talking, I think is despicable. And when he was cancelled from Twitter, I mean, I just think that was a bit of a game changer when everyone realised that actually these globalists, these sort of technocrats, they have way too much power on what we can hear.
Kelly, do you want to shout anything out? You have social media or anything?
I do. If you want to purchase and support what we do, there's a US store, which is adulthumanfemale.us. If you're in the UK or Europe or you don't mind high postage costs, it's adulthumanfemale.store. And you can also support what we do at standingforwomen.com. Oh, and Kellie-Jay Keen on YouTube.
Right on.